Captain Jake Morrison stood in the control room of the USS Leviathan, watching the sonar screen with growing concern. 3 months had passed since the aliens first appeared, and the ocean felt different now. The water seemed heavier, darker, filled with things that didn't belong. "Contact bearing 270, sir," said Petty Officer Danny Clark, his voice tight with tension. "It's moving fast." Jake leaned over the young sailor's shoulder. The green dot on the screen moved in ways that made no sense. No submarine could turn that sharp at that speed. No fish swam in those perfect geometric patterns. "How deep?" Jake asked. 1,500 feet and diving, sir." Jake felt his stomach drop. The creatures were getting bolder. When they first came, they stayed in the deepest parts of the ocean. Now they moved freely through waters that belonged to humans for centuries. The radio crackled to life. "Leviathan, this is Research Vessel Ocean Pioneer. We have a problem out here." Jake grabbed the microphone. "Ocean Pioneer, this is Captain Morrison. What's your situation?" "Captain, this is Dr. Lisa Harper. We're seeing massive bioluminescent activity 3 miles southeast of our position. The water is glowing like the 4th of July down there." Jake knew Dr. Harper by reputation. She was one of the few marine biologists who had actually studied the alien specimens. Most scientists were too scared to get close to the creatures that had claimed Earth's oceans as their own. "How close are you to the activity, Doctor?" "Close enough to see it's not natural. These patterns are too organized, too purposeful. Captain, I think they're building something." Through the Leviathan's thick hull, Jake could hear it. A low humming that seemed to come from everywhere at once. His crew felt it too. Men who had spent years underwater knew the difference between normal ocean sounds and something else entirely. The humming grew louder. "All stop," Jake ordered. "Rig for silent running." The submarine's engines went quiet. In the sudden silence, the alien song became clearer. It pulsed through the water like a heartbeat, rhythmic and strange. Seaman Tony Martinez looked up from his station. "Sir, I'm picking up movement all around us, big movement." The sonar screen lit up like a Christmas tree. Dozens of contacts surrounded the Leviathan, moving in perfect formation. They were huge, larger than any whale Jake had ever seen. "Jesus," whispered Clark. "There's got to be 50 of them out there." Jake had seen the aliens before, but never this many at once. When they first appeared 3 months ago, world leaders called it first contact. The creatures had emerged from the deepest ocean trenches, places where no human had ever been. They came in ships that looked more like living things than machines. The aliens called themselves the Thalassic Dominion. They spoke to humans through strange telepathic messages that made people's heads hurt. Their message was simple and terrifying. Earth's oceans now belonged to them. All human ships had to leave the water within 72 hours. Most governments had tried to negotiate. The aliens weren't interested in talking. They demonstrated their power by shutting down every naval vessel that came too close. Not destroying them, just making them stop working. Crews would fall unconscious, and their ships would drift helplessly until the aliens decided to let them wake up. But submarines were different. The aliens seemed to have trouble detecting them in the deep water. That's why Jake and his crew were out here trying to learn everything they could about the new rulers of the sea. "Dr. Harper," Jake said into the radio, "I need you to get your people out of the water, now." "Captain, we're scientists. This is the discovery of the century. We can't just run away." "Doctor, you don't understand. They're all around us, more than we've ever seen together." The humming stopped. In the sudden quiet, Jake felt his heart pounding. Every sailor on the submarine held his breath. The alien song had become part of the ocean's background noise over the past 3 months. When it stopped, something was wrong. "Contact directly below us," Martinez called out. "It's big, sir. Really big." Jake looked at the sonar display. A massive shape was rising from the ocean floor, moving straight toward them. It was easily 3 times the size of the Leviathan. "Emergency blow. Surface the boat." "Sir, if we surface, they'll see us for sure," said Lieutenant Commander Pete Johnson, Jake's second in command. "They already know we're here, Pete. Look at that thing coming up at us. The Leviathan's ballast tanks filled with air and the submarine began rising fast. Through the periscope, Jake could see the ocean surface far above, a distant promise of safety. But the alien ship was faster. It broke through the water like a living mountain, covered in lights that pulsed with the same rhythm as the alien song. The ship's hull looked organic, like the shell of some massive sea creature. Tentacles longer than city blocks waved in the current. "Radio Admiral Brooks," Jake ordered. "Tell him we found their main base." As the Leviathan rose toward the surface, Jake could see more alien ships emerging from the depths. They came from every direction, surrounding the area like they were protecting something important. Dr. Harper's voice came through the radio again. "Captain Morrison, are you seeing this? The water temperature just dropped 20 degrees. The marine life is fleeing the area." Jake watched through the periscope as fish swam past in panic. Whales and dolphins raced toward deeper water. Even the sharks were running away. "Doctor, get your ship moving. Head for shore." "We're trying, Captain, but our engines just died. All our electrical systems are shutting down." Jake cursed under his breath. The aliens were using their weapon again, the same thing that had disabled dozens of military ships around the world. But the Leviathan kept rising. Its nuclear reactor hummed steadily, unaffected by whatever force was shutting down the research vessel. "Pete, why aren't we affected?" Jake asked his second in command. "I don't know, sir. Maybe because we're still underwater, or maybe it's our shielding." The submarine broke through the surface with a splash. Jake opened the hatch and climbed up to the bridge. The ocean around them was chaos. Alien ships filled the water as far as he could see. Some floated on the surface like islands covered in glowing plants. Others moved just below the waves, their lights creating patterns in the dark water. Dr. Harper's research vessel drifted helplessly 2 miles away. Jake could see people on the deck, pointing at the alien ships in wonder and terror. The largest alien ship rose fully from the water, revealing itself to be even bigger than Jake had thought. It was like a floating city, covered in structures that looked grown rather than built. Creatures that might have been the aliens themselves moved across its surface. Jake grabbed his binoculars and focused on the research vessel. Dr. Harper stood on the deck, holding some kind of instrument toward the aliens. Even from this distance, Jake could see she was recording everything. The radio crackled again. "Captain Morrison, this is Admiral Brooks. Report your status." Jake keyed his microphone. "Admiral, we've found them. There's got to be 100 alien ships out here, maybe more. They're not just passing through, sir. They're setting up a permanent base." "Understood, Captain. Can you estimate their capabilities?" Jake watched as smaller alien craft moved between the larger ships, carrying what looked like construction materials. They were building something huge underwater, something that would change the ocean forever. "Sir, I think we're looking at an invasion force. They're not here to visit. They're here to stay." As if responding to his words, the alien song began again. This time it was different, stronger. The sound came from every ship at once, creating a harmony that made Jake's teeth ache. The message was clear even without words. The ocean belonged to them now. Humans were no longer welcome in the deep places of their own world. Jake looked at his crew, then at the alien fleet surrounding them. Somewhere in those glowing ships were the answers humanity needed. How many aliens were there? What did they really want? And most importantly, how could they be stopped? The 72-hour deadline was almost up. Soon, every human ship would have to leave the ocean or face the consequences. But Jake Morrison had other plans. He was going to find out what the aliens were really up to, even if it killed him. 2 weeks after the first encounter, Captain Jake Morrison found himself in the deepest part of the Pacific Ocean. The USS Leviathan moved slowly through the dark water, 3 miles below the surface. With him were 3 other submarines from different countries. The British HMS Challenger, the Russian Severodvinsk, and the Japanese Soryu followed behind in single file. This was the first joint mission since the aliens took over the oceans. Admiral Brooks had convinced world leaders that they needed to know more about their new underwater neighbors before making any big decisions. "Sonar contact ahead," whispered Petty Officer Danny Clark. 2 miles and closing. Jake looked at the screen. The contact was huge and moving in the strange geometric patterns they had learned to recognize as alien. But this one was different. It wasn't heading toward them or away from them, it was just sitting there in the water, waiting. "All stop," Jake ordered quietly. "Pass the word to our friends behind us." The 4 submarines drifted to a halt in the crushing darkness of the deep ocean. At this depth, the water pressure was enough to crush a human instantly. Only the strongest submarines could operate here safely. Dr. Lisa Harper worked at a small station that had been added to the Leviathan just for this mission. She studied the alien signals that filled the ocean now, trying to understand how the creatures communicated. "Captain," she said softly, "I'm picking up some interesting patterns. The aliens aren't using radio waves like we do. They're using electrical pulses through the water itself. Can you understand what they're saying?" "Not yet. But I think I'm starting to see the pattern. It's like they're all connected somehow. When one sends a signal, others respond at the exact same time." Jake nodded. Over the past 2 weeks, they had learned that the aliens were not like humans at all. They seemed to share thoughts and feelings across great distances. When one group of aliens became excited or angry, others in completely different parts of the ocean would react the same way. "Movement on sonar," Clark reported. "The contact is descending toward the ocean floor." Through the submarine's thick hull, they could hear the alien song again. It was quieter here in the deep water, but still present. The sound had become constant now, like background music that never stopped. Commander Alex Rivera sat in the corner of the control room, studying maps and photographs. His Navy SEAL team had been doing dangerous diving missions near alien settlements, trying to gather information that satellites couldn't provide. "Captain," Rivera said, looking up from his papers, "my divers found something interesting yesterday. The aliens have 3 main cities underwater. One in the deepest part of the Pacific, one in the Atlantic, and one in the Caribbean. How do you know they're cities?" "Because they're huge and organized. Thousands of the creatures living together in structures that look like giant coral reefs. But these reefs are too perfect, too planned. They're definitely artificial." "Doctor." Harper turned from her equipment. "That matches what I'm seeing in their communication patterns. 3 main signal sources with smaller groups scattered around the world." Jake studied the sonar screen as the alien contact moved closer to the ocean floor. Whatever it was doing down there, it was important enough to risk coming this deep into crushing water. "Take us down another 1,000 feet, Jake ordered. "Let's see what our friend is up to." The Leviathan descended slowly, its hull creaking under the immense pressure. At this depth, they were deeper than any human had ever gone in a submarine. The alien ship ahead of them seemed unaffected by the crushing water. "Jesus," Clark whispered. "Captain, you need to see this." On the sonar screen, the ocean floor was covered with activity. Dozens of alien ships moved in organized patterns, building something massive. Structures rose from the sea floor like underwater mountains, glowing with the same bioluminescent light they had seen before. "It's a city," Dr. Harper breathed. "They're building an entire city down there." Jake grabbed the periscope controls, but at this depth there was no light to see with. Only sonar could show them what was happening in the crushing darkness below. "Rivera, have your divers ever seen anything like this?" "No, sir. The settlements we've observed are much smaller. This is something else entirely. This looks like their main base of operations." The alien ship they had been following suddenly changed course. Instead of descending to the city below, it began rising toward them. Fast. "Contact is ascending rapidly," Clark reported, his voice tight with worry. "It's heading straight for us." Jake felt his heart racing. They were trapped between the alien city below and an alien ship rising toward them. The other submarines were too far behind to help, and at this depth there was nowhere to run. "Emergency blow," Jake ordered. "Get us out of here." The Leviathan's ballast tanks filled with air, and the submarine began rising. But the alien ship was faster. It reached them before they could gain much altitude. Through the hull they could hear new sounds. Not the usual alien song, but something else. Clicking and tapping like someone knocking on their submarine's hull. "They're scanning us," Dr. Harper said, watching her instruments. Some kind of sonar system, but much more advanced than ours. The clicking sounds continued for several minutes while the Leviathan rose slowly toward the surface. Jake expected the aliens to attack or disable his submarine like they had done to so many surface ships, but nothing happened. Finally, the alien ship moved away and descended back toward the underwater city. The clicking sounds faded, replaced once again by the constant alien song. "Why didn't they stop us?" Lieutenant Commander Pete Johnson asked. "Doctor," Harper was studying her recordings of the encounter. "I think they were just curious. They scanned us, learned what they wanted to know, and let us go. Or they wanted us to see their city," Rivera suggested. "Maybe they're sending a message." Jake considered this as the Leviathan continued rising. The aliens had demonstrated their power many times over the past 3 months. They could disable any surface ship, control ocean currents, and build massive underwater structures in just weeks, but they hadn't actually hurt any humans yet. "Harper, what do you think they want?" The marine biologist looked at her data for a long moment before answering. "I think they're refugees, Captain. Everything about their behavior suggests they're not conquerors. They're settlers. Settlers who kicked us out of our own oceans. Maybe they had no choice. Think about it. They appeared from the deepest ocean trenches, places where nothing should be able to live. What if they came from somewhere else entirely? What if they need our oceans to survive?" The radio crackled to life. It was Captain Petrov from the Russian submarine. "American submarine, we are seeing similar construction activity at our target location. The aliens are building 3 major cities simultaneously." Captain Yamamoto from the Japanese submarine reported the same thing. The aliens weren't just claiming Earth's oceans. They were transforming them into something new. "All submarines." "This is Morrison," Jake said into the radio. "We need to coordinate our intelligence. Meet at the rendezvous point in 6 hours." As the 4 submarines headed toward their meeting location, Jake thought about what they had discovered. 3 alien cities, thousands of creatures and construction projects that were changing the ocean floor itself. But the most disturbing discovery was how vulnerable the aliens seemed during certain times. Rivera's divers had noticed that the creatures went into trance-like states regularly, becoming completely unaware of their surroundings for hours at a time. Dr. Harper called it a feeding cycle. The aliens seemed to absorb energy directly from the water around them, but during this process they were helpless. It was the only time human divers could get close to their settlements without being detected. "Captain," Dr. Harper said quietly, "I've been analyzing the alien communication patterns. I think I can disrupt them." "What do you mean?" "Their electrical signals follow very specific frequencies. If we could generate the right kind of sonar pulse, we might be able to jam their communications. Make it so they can't coordinate with each other." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. If the aliens were as connected as they seemed, disrupting their communications might be like cutting the phone lines during a battle. It could give humanity a significant advantage. "How long would you need to develop this jamming system?" "Give me 2 weeks and access to some specialized equipment. I can modify our sonar arrays to generate the right frequencies." As the Leviathan rose toward the surface, Jake made a decision that would change everything. Instead of reporting back to Admiral Brooks immediately, he was going to give Dr. Harper the time she needed. If there was a way to level the playing field against the aliens, they had to try it. The ocean around them was no longer the familiar blue water that humans had sailed for thousands of years. It was alien territory now, filled with creatures and cities that didn't belong to Earth. But Jake Morrison wasn't ready to give up the fight for humanity's oceans. Not yet. The water around the USS Leviathan turned bright green as Dr. Harper's modified sonar array fired its first test pulse. Captain Jake Morrison watched the sonar screen carefully, hoping to see some change in the alien ship that had been following them for the past hour. "Did it work?" Jake asked. Dr. Harper adjusted her equipment and fired another pulse. This time, the alien ship on the screen seemed to wobble in the water, like a drunk person trying to walk straight. "It's working," she said with excitement. "Their communication system is disrupted. Look how confused they are." The alien ship moved in circles for several minutes before finally swimming away in the wrong direction. Jake felt a surge of hope. For the first time since the aliens arrived, humans had found a way to fight back. 2 weeks had passed since their deep-sea reconnaissance mission. The 4 submarines had shared their intelligence with military leaders around the world. The aliens had 3 main cities and dozens of smaller settlements. They went into feeding trances every 6 hours. And now, thanks to Dr. Harper, their communications could be jammed. Admiral Brooks had been busy during those 2 weeks. He convinced world leaders that humanity needed to act before the aliens finished building their underwater empire. Ships from 12 different countries were now heading toward the 3 main alien cities. "Captain Morrison," the radio crackled with Admiral Brooks' voice. "Operation Deep Strike is approved. You'll lead the assault on the Pacific City. Are you ready?" Jake looked around the control room of the Leviathan. His crew had been training non-stop for this mission. They knew the risks. At the crushing depths where the alien cities were built, one mistake could kill them all. "We're ready, Admiral." "Good. Remember, you have a 6-hour window during their next feeding cycle. Hit them hard and fast, then get out before they wake up." Commander Alex Rivera and his SEAL team had spent the past week preparing special equipment for the mission. They had modified diving suits to work at extreme depths and created new weapons designed specifically for fighting underwater aliens. "My divers are ready, Captain," Rivera reported. "We've trained civilian deep-sea workers from oil rigs and research stations. They know these waters better than anyone." Jake nodded. The military didn't have enough submarines for this mission, so they were using every underwater vessel they could find. Research submarines, deep-sea exploration craft, even some civilian vessels had been modified with Dr. Harper's jamming equipment. As the Leviathan descended toward the alien city in the Pacific, Jake thought about what they were trying to do. The alien city was massive, built around underwater volcanic vents that provided heat and energy. Thousands of the creatures lived there in structures that looked like giant coral formations. "Sonar contact," Petty Officer Danny Clark reported. "Multiple alien ships around the city. They're in formation, like they're guarding something." Through the submarine's sonar, Jake could see the alien city spread out below them. It was even bigger than he remembered, with new construction that had appeared in just 2 weeks. The aliens were building fast, changing the ocean floor into something that looked more like their homeworld. "Dr. Harper, are you picking up their communication signals?" "Yes, Captain. The usual patterns. They don't seem to know we're here yet." Jake checked his watch. The aliens would enter their feeding trance in 30 minutes. That's when the attack would begin. But first they needed to get into position without being detected. "Take us down to 4,000 feet. Stay in the thermal layer where their sonar can't track us properly." The Leviathan descended into the crushing depths of the Pacific. At this depth, the water pressure was over 180 times greater than at sea level. Only the strongest submarines could operate here, which is why the aliens had chosen this location for their main city. "Movement below us," Clark whispered. "Big movement." On the sonar screen, Jake could see hundreds of alien creatures swimming in organized patterns around their city. They moved like schools of fish, but much larger and more purposeful. Some of the creatures were the size of blue whales. "Are those their warships?" Lieutenant Commander Pete Johnson asked. "I don't think so," Dr. Harper said, studying her instruments. "The movement patterns are too regular, too peaceful. I think those are just normal citizens going about their daily lives." Jake felt a moment of doubt. These weren't mindless monsters. They were about to attack. These were intelligent beings with families and homes. But then he remembered the human coastal cities that had been abandoned because of alien activity. The shipping lanes that were now too dangerous to use. The fishing industry that had collapsed overnight. The aliens had given humanity no choice. They had claimed the oceans and expected humans to simply accept it. "Captain, I'm detecting the start of the feeding cycle," Dr. Harper reported. "Their electrical activity is changing." All around the alien city, the creatures began to slow down. Their organized swimming patterns became lazy and unfocused. The bright lights that covered their city started to pulse more slowly. "Signal the EU. Other submarines," Jake ordered. "Begin Operation Deep Strike." Across the Pacific, Atlantic, and Caribbean, human submarines began their coordinated attack. 63 vessels from 12 countries moved simultaneously toward the three alien cities. The Leviathan fired its first torpedo at the nearest alien structure. The weapon struck home, causing a section of the coral-like building to collapse. But instead of an explosion, the structure seemed to deflate like a punctured balloon. "The buildings are alive," Dr. Harper said with amazement. "They're not made of metal or stone, they're some kind of living tissue." More torpedoes struck the alien city as other submarines joined the attack. The sleeping aliens barely reacted to the destruction around them. Their feeding trance was so deep that they couldn't wake up even when their homes were being destroyed. But not all the aliens were asleep. "Contact rising fast from the city center," Clark shouted. "It's huge, Captain. Bigger than anything we've seen before." On the sonar screen, a massive shape emerged from the deepest part of the alien city. It was easily 10 times the size of the Leviathan, covered in the same organic armor as the smaller alien ships. "That must be their queen," Rivera said. Tavers reported seeing larger creatures at the center of each city. "We think they're the leaders." The massive alien ship rose toward them with surprising speed. As it approached, Jake could hear new sounds through the hull. Not the usual alien song, but something harsher. "Angry. Fire jamming pulse," Jake ordered. Dr. Harper activated her modified sonar array. The green pulse of energy struck the alien queen ship, causing it to shudder in the water. But unlike the smaller aliens, this creature seemed to resist the jamming. "It's not working as well on the big one," Dr. Harper reported. "The larger aliens might be more resistant to our jamming." The queen ship fired some kind of weapon at the Leviathan. Jake felt the submarine shake as a pulse of energy struck their hull. Lights flickered throughout the control room. "Damage report," Jake called out. "Hull integrity holding, but our electronics are scrambled," Johnson reported. "Whatever they hit us with, it's designed to disrupt our systems." Jake realized that the aliens had their own version of the jamming weapon. They could disable human technology just like humans could disrupt alien communications. "All submarines, this is Morrison," Jake said into the radio. "The large aliens are fighting back. Stay focused on your targets and get out as soon as possible." Around the alien city, the feeding trance was beginning to end. Smaller alien ships started moving faster, responding to the attack. The creatures that had been floating peacefully began swimming in aggressive patterns. "Captain, we need to leave now," Rivera warned. "If we stay much longer, we'll be trapped down here." Jake watched as his torpedoes continued to strike alien structures. The city was taking heavy damage, but it was so large that destroying it completely would take hours. Hours they didn't have. "Emergency blow. Take us up." The Leviathan began rising as fast as it could, but the alien queen ship followed. More energy pulses struck the submarine, causing systems to fail throughout the vessel. "Hull breach in compartment 3, someone shouted. "We're taking on water." Jake felt the submarine's angle change as water flooded one of the rear compartments. They were still 3,000 feet underwater, with an angry alien warship chasing them. "Harper, hit them with everything you've got." Dr. Harper fired pulse after pulse from her jamming array. The alien queen ship slowed its pursuit but didn't stop completely. The creature seemed to be learning how to resist the jamming. "Captain, I'm getting reports from the other submarines," the radio operator called out. "The Atlantic assault is successful, but we've lost 2 subs in the Caribbean. The aliens there were ready for us." Jake's heart sank. He had known there would be casualties, but losing entire submarine crews made the victory feel hollow. The Leviathan continued rising toward the surface, followed by the alien queen ship. Behind them, the alien city burned with strange bioluminescent fires. The attack had succeeded in damaging all 3 alien cities, but Jake wondered if it had been enough. As they broke through the surface of the Pacific, Jake could see alien ships scattered across the horizon. Some were fleeing toward deeper water. Others seemed to be regrouping for a counterattack. The ocean had turned into a war zone. Captain Jake Morrison looked through the periscope of the USS Leviathan at waters that used to be peaceful blue, but were now filled with strange lights and moving shadows. 3 days had passed since Operation Deep Strike, and the aliens were fighting back harder than anyone expected. "Sonar contact bearing 180, Petty Officer Danny Clark called out. It's one of those new creatures, sir. The big, angry ones. Jake had learned to recognize the different types of alien ships. The original aliens were large but peaceful, moving slowly through the water like gentle giants. But after the attack, on their cities new creatures had appeared. These were smaller, faster, and definitely built for war. How far away? Jake asked. 2 miles and closing fast, Captain. It's got friends with it. Dr. Lisa Harper worked frantically at her modified sonar station. Over the past 3 days, she had been trying to improve her jamming system. The aliens were learning to resist it, adapting faster than she could keep up. I'm detecting at least 12 hostile contacts, she reported. They're moving in a hunting pattern, trying to surround us. Jake felt the familiar weight of command pressing down on him. The Leviathan was one of 60 submarines from around the world taking part in the second phase of humanity's counterattack. But unlike the first strike, this time the aliens were ready for them. Emergency dive. Take us down to 5,000 feet. The submarine angled downward into the crushing depths of the Pacific. At this depth, the water pressure was enormous, but Jake had learned that human submarines could go deeper than the aliens expected. It was one of the few advantages humanity still had. Commander Alex Rivera sat in the corner of the control room, checking his diving equipment one more time. His SEAL team was preparing for the most dangerous mission of the war. They needed to plant explosives inside the alien breeding facility that intelligence had discovered in the deepest part of the Mariana Trench. Captain, my team is ready, Rivera said. But I have to be honest with you, this is a one-way mission. Even if we succeed in destroying the breeding facility, there's no way to get back up from that depth. Jake nodded grimly. They had all known this day might come. The war was getting worse, and desperate times called for desperate measures. The radio crackled with reports from other submarines around the world. The news wasn't good. Leviathan, this is HMS Challenger, came the voice of Captain Sarah Mills from the British submarine. We've lost contact with 3 vessels in the Atlantic sector. The aliens are using some kind of new weapon that we've never seen before. Jake grabbed the microphone. What kind of weapon, Challenger? They're releasing modified sea creatures, Captain. Sharks, whales, giant squids, but changed somehow. Made aggressive and directed toward human vessels. It's like they've turned the entire ocean ecosystem against us. Through the Leviathan's hull, Jake could hear the alien song getting louder, but now it sounded different. Before the war, the alien music had been haunting but peaceful. Now it was harsh and angry, like a battle cry echoing through the water. Dr. Harper, are you picking up anything unusual in their communications? Yes, Captain. The patterns have changed completely. Before, their signals were organized and calm. Now they're chaotic, desperate. I think we hurt them more than we realized with our first attack. Jake thought about the alien cities they had damaged. According to intelligence reports, the structures were slowly healing themselves, but thousands of alien civilians had been killed in the attacks. It was war, but that didn't make the casualties easier to accept. Contact directly below us, Clark announced. It's rising fast. On the sonar screen, Jake could see a massive shape coming up from the ocean floor. It was even bigger than the alien queen ships they had fought before, and it was moving with purpose. That's our target, Rivera said, studying the sonar display. The breeding facility. It must be mobile. The alien structure was enormous, easily the size of a small city. As it rose through the water, Jake could see smaller ships attached to its sides like parasites. The entire thing pulsed with bioluminescent light that created patterns too complex for human eyes to follow. All submarines, this is Morrison, Jake said into the radio. We have the primary target in sight. Begin final assault. Around the Pacific, the remaining human submarines converged on the mobile breeding facility. They came from all directions, using every trick they had learned during months of underwater warfare. But the aliens were ready for them. The water around the Leviathan suddenly filled with hostile contacts. Alien warships appeared from nowhere, moving in coordinated attacks that showed how much they had learned about human tactics. Torpedoes in the water, Clark shouted. Multiple launches from all directions. Jake watched as alien weapons streaked toward his submarine. These weren't the energy pulses they had faced before. These were physical projectiles that moved through the water like living things. Emergency evasive maneuvers. Fire countermeasures. The Leviathan twisted through the water, trying to avoid the alien torpedoes. But the weapons seemed to anticipate every move, following the submarine like predators chasing prey. One of the alien torpedoes struck the submarine's hull with a sound like breaking glass. Jake felt the deck shake under his feet as systems throughout the vessel began failing. Hull breach in Compartment 5, Lieutenant Commander Pete Johnson reported. We're losing pressure fast. Around them, the battle raged through the deep water. Human submarines fired conventional torpedoes while alien ships responded with their living weapons. The ocean itself seemed to be fighting against the human vessels. Dr. Harper, can you jam their guidance systems? I'm trying, Captain, but they're not using electronics like we do. These weapons are biological. They're following our scent through the water. Jake realized that humanity's technological advantages meant nothing against an enemy that used living creatures instead of machines. The aliens had turned evolution itself into a weapon. Rivera, how long do you need to reach the breeding facility? Give me 10 minutes to get my team in position. We'll swim down and plant the charges manually. Jake looked at the sonar screen. The alien breeding facility was still rising, now only 2,000 feet below them. Around it, dozens of alien warships formed a protective screen. You'll never make it through their defenses. Maybe not, Captain, but we have to try. If that facility keeps producing new aliens, we'll lose this war. The radio crackled with more bad news. Human submarines were being destroyed faster than they could inflict damage on the alien forces. The modified sea creatures were proving especially effective, attacking human vessels with intelligence and coordination that no natural animal possessed. Leviathan, this is Admiral Brooks, came the familiar voice through the static. We're taking heavy casualties across all theaters. I'm ordering a general retreat. Jake felt his heart sink. They had come so close to destroying the alien breeding facility. If they retreated now, the aliens would have time to produce even more warriors. Admiral, we have a chance to end this. The breeding facility is right here. Captain Morrison, I understand your position, but we cannot afford to lose any more submarines. Fall back to the rally point. Jake looked around his control room. His crew was exhausted. His submarine was damaged, and they were surrounded by hostile aliens. The smart thing to do was follow orders and retreat, but Commander Rivera was already putting on his diving gear. Captain, I'm going anyway. Rivera said quietly, this might be our only chance. Jake made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Instead of following Admiral Brooks's retreat order, he was going to give Rivera the time he needed to reach the breeding facility. Battle stations, Jake announced to his crew. We're going to hold this position until Commander Rivera completes his mission. The Leviathan turned toward the approaching alien warships, its remaining torpedoes loaded and ready. Around them, the other human submarines began withdrawing, leaving Jake and his crew alone in the deep water. Dr. Harper, give me everything you've got, full jamming power. Captain, if I overload the system, we won't have any defenses left. Do it anyway. Dr. Harper activated her modified sonar array at maximum power. The green pulse that erupted from the Leviathan was so strong that it caused alien ships throughout the area to lose control. Some crashed into each other while others spun helplessly through the water. But the jamming pulse also drained the submarine's power reserves. Lights went out throughout the vessel as the nuclear reactor struggled to maintain basic systems. Commander Rivera and his SEAL team dove into the crushing darkness of the deep ocean, swimming toward the alien breeding facility with explosives strapped to their backs. They had enough air for 20 minutes at this depth. After that, the ocean would claim them. Jake watched through sonar as the small group of human divers approached the massive alien structure. They looked like tiny dots next to the city-sized breeding facility. Come on, Jake whispered, watching. The clock count down. Come on. Around the Leviathan, alien warships recovered from the jamming pulse and began closing in for the kill. Jake's submarine was powerless, drifting in the water like a wounded whale. Through the hull, he could hear the alien song change once again. This time it sounded like mourning. The explosion shook the entire ocean. Captain Jake Morrison felt the USS Leviathan rock violently as Commander Rivera's charges detonated inside the alien breeding facility. Through the sonar screen, he watched the massive structure collapse in on itself, taking thousands of alien creatures with it. The alien song that had filled the ocean for months suddenly stopped. In the crushing silence that followed, Jake realized that something fundamental had changed. The alien warships around his submarine had stopped moving. They drifted in the water like confused animals, no longer coordinated or purposeful. "Dr. Harper, what's happening to them?" Jake asked. Dr. Lisa Harper studied her instruments with amazement. "Captain, the breeding facility wasn't just producing new aliens. It was the central nervous system for their entire network. Without it, they can't communicate with each other anymore." Through the periscope, Jake could see alien ships throughout, the area moving randomly, bumping into each other without the organized patterns they had shown before. Some were trying to return to their damaged cities while others seemed completely lost. Sonar contact rising from the facility wreckage. Petty Officer Danny Clark reported. "It's Commander Rivera." Jake's heart jumped with hope, but he knew the chances were small. Rivera and his team had been swimming at a depth that should have crushed any human instantly. The contact on sonar was moving slowly, too slowly. As it got closer, Jake could see it was only one person in a damaged diving suit. "Emergency surface," Jake ordered. "Get a rescue team ready." The Leviathan rose through the dark water as fast as its damaged systems would allow. When they reached the surface, Jake climbed up to the bridge and saw Commander Rivera floating nearby, barely conscious in his cracked diving suit. They pulled Rivera aboard just as his air supply ran out. He was alive, but barely. As the submarine's medic worked on him, Rivera managed to speak. "Did it work?" he whispered. "Did we stop them?" Jake looked out at the ocean around them. Alien ships were scattered across the horizon, but they were no longer attacking human vessels. Many seemed to be fleeing toward deeper water, moving without coordination or purpose. "Yeah, Commander, it worked." Over the next few hours, reports came in from around the world. The destruction of the breeding facility had caused the collapse of the alien communication network. Their 3 main cities were abandoned as confused aliens scattered throughout the oceans. But the victory came at a terrible cost. Dozens of submarines had been lost during the final battle. Thousands of sailors had died fighting in the deep water, and the ocean itself had been changed forever by months of warfare. Admiral Henry Brooks contacted the Leviathan by radio 3 days later. "Captain Morrison, we need you back at Pearl Harbor. We have a situation that requires your expertise." When Jake arrived at the naval base, he found Admiral Brooks meeting with Dr. Harper and representatives from around the world. But most surprising was the presence of several aliens in a specially built water tank. "Captain, meet Ambassador Coralsong," Admiral Brooks said, gesturing toward the largest alien in the tank. "She represents what's left of the Thalassic Dominion, leadership." The alien was unlike anything Jake had seen before. Instead of the aggressive warriors or confused survivors they had encountered recently, this creature seemed calm and intelligent. Lights pulsed gently across its translucent skin in patterns that somehow conveyed meaning. Dr. Harper had been working as a translator. "Ambassador Coralsong wants to explain why her people came to Earth. She says there's been a terrible misunderstanding." Jake listened as Dr. Harper relayed the alien's story. The Thalassic Dominion were indeed refugees, fleeing from a dying ocean world. Their planet had been poisoned by industrial disasters that made the water toxic to their kind. Earth's oceans represented their only hope for survival. "They never intended to hurt humans," Dr. Harper translated. "They thought Earth's oceans were empty because they couldn't detect any intelligent life underwater. To them, humans were just land creatures who occasionally visited the water." Jake felt a mixture of anger and sadness. "So they just decided to take our oceans without asking?" The aliens' lights pulsed in what Dr. Harper had learned was their expression of regret. "She says their people were dying. They acted out of desperation, not malice. When humans fought back, they thought we were trying to destroy refugees seeking shelter." Admiral Brooks stepped forward. "Captain, the situation has changed since the breeding facility was destroyed. Without their communication network, most of the aliens are scattered and confused. Many are dying because they can't coordinate their survival efforts. Jake looked at the alien ambassador. Even through the language barrier, he could see intelligence and sadness in the creature's large eyes. These weren't monsters. They were people trying to survive in a hostile universe. "What do they want from us now?" Jake asked. Dr. Harper listened to the aliens' light patterns for several minutes before translating. "She's offering to share their biotechnology with humans in exchange for designated areas of the ocean where her people can live peacefully. They can help restore damaged marine ecosystems and even clean up pollution that humans have created." Over the following weeks, Jake found himself involved in negotiations that would reshape humanity's relationship with the oceans. The aliens possessed incredible knowledge about marine biology and water purification. They could grow living cities that actually improve the ocean environment instead of damaging it. But trust was hard to build after months of warfare. Many humans wanted to drive the aliens away completely, while some alien groups refused to work with the people who had destroyed their breeding facility. Jake worked with Dr. Harper and Ambassador Coral Song to establish the first joint human-alien settlement in the Pacific. It was built around one of the damaged alien cities, using both human engineering and alien biotechnology. Commander Rivera, still recovering from his deep-sea mission, helped train the first mixed crews of human sailors and alien swimmers. They learned to work together, patrolling the new boundaries between human and alien territories. "It's strange," Rivera told Jake one day as they watched human and alien ships working together to clean up pollution near the California coast. 6 months ago, we were trying to kill each other. Now we're partners." Jake nodded, watching alien creatures use their natural abilities to filter toxins from the water, while human ships provided transportation and heavy equipment. The cooperation was working better than anyone had expected. Dr. Harper had become the head of the new Oceanic Council, the international organization responsible for managing human-alien relations. She had learned to speak the alien light language fluently and served as the primary translator between species. "The aliens are teaching us things about the ocean that we never knew," she told Jake during one of their meetings. "They can show us how to farm the sea without damaging it, how to generate energy from ocean currents, and how to travel underwater without disturbing marine life." But the integration wasn't without problems. Some alien groups, bitter about the destruction of their cities, continued to attack human vessels. And some human governments refused to honor the Oceanic Accords, trying to claim alien technology by force. Jake found his new role as commander of the Joint Ocean Patrol both challenging and rewarding. His ship, a hybrid vessel that combined human submarine technology with alien bioengineering, could dive deeper and travel faster than any previous underwater craft. 5 years after the war ended, Jake stood on the deck of his ship watching the sun set over waters that were cleaner and more alive than they had been in decades. Alien biofilters had removed most of the plastic pollution from the Pacific, while human technology had helped the aliens establish stable communities. The ocean was no longer just humanity's domain, but it wasn't lost to aliens either. It had become something new, a shared space where two very different species learned to work together. Ambassador Coral Song approached Jake, her bioluminescent patterns now as familiar to him as spoken words. She was asking about the next deep-sea exploration mission, a joint venture to explore the deepest ocean trenches that neither species had fully investigated. "Tell her we launch next week," Jake said to the human translator nearby. "And remind her that we're partners now, not conquerors." As alien and human crews prepared for their next adventure together, Jake realized that the war had ended with something nobody expected. Not victory or defeat, but understanding. The oceans belonged to both species now, and perhaps that made them stronger than either could be alone. In the distance, Earth's first interstellar vessel was being tested, designed with both human and alien technology to explore ocean worlds beyond the solar system. The species that had once fought for control of Earth's waters would soon travel together to find new oceans among the stars.